All right, folks. We have an interesting podcast here. We've got Ben over here, the general sales manager for Protect Roofing, based in the greater St. Louis area. How you doing, Ben?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
Good, good. So we want to start off with talking about what you're looking forward to. There's always something that everyone wants to pursue, whether it's work, it's personal life. So for you, Ben, what are you looking forward to for the rest of this week?
For the rest of this week, well, I just moved into a new apartment, so I'm getting that all nice and set up. My son has some hockey games this weekend, so I'm going to be banging on the glass for him. And that's pretty much the work-life balance is finding where I can help my sales team the best that I can, even on the weekends, and also be there for the kids and do the best that I can for them.
Yeah, and it's what we find in the roofing space is that it's a 24/7 business. Like roofs don't st need maintenance or repairs no matter what. So beings finding the way to balance it and integrate it within your life sounds like it's a common theme.
Well, I think that's all sales, to be honest. I mean, if you're in sales, you never really have time off. If that phone rings and it's a prospective client and it's something you're looking to close, I rarely not pick up the phone when I know it's something that I'm expecting and something that I'm looking to put in the pipeline. So, but yeah, roofing definitely. I mean, roofs are working 24/7. So is the roofing industry, but especially in sales, you go on vacation, you're still picking up your phone for sales calls. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's what sets people apart in this space because, especially in the roofing industry, when a roof goes down, they're gonna call and do business whoever picks up the phone for
mhm.
fastest for them. There's gonna be five people are calling, and if you're on voicemail, but another person picks up and builds that rapport, like I would imagine they're the ones that they're gonna be doing business with.
Yeah. Well, and that's another thing that we have a very comprehensive staff as far as making sure the phones are manned, making sure phone calls are returned if they have to be. But we have about two people on the front end doing customer service before they even have an inspection or anything like that. The other thing is when they're set up for an inspection, they get a list of people who are going to be reaching out to them. So that also makes it a lot easier for a prospective client to say, okay, well, I'm not being taken care of just by one sleazy salesman who's just trying to sell me a used car or whatever. I'm already right out of the gate being taken care of by a team.
Mm. Yep. Oh, that resonates well with me. And I'm sure that's not a one-time thing for you. I'm sure this is a life journey for you that's to build up this type of process and team. So, walk me through how did you get into the journey of one sales and into in the roofing and home exterior space?
Okay, well, I came to the industry from the world of journalism. I actually still have my hands in journalism. I always have. I've been in it for about 20 years, but at the time I was exposed to construction trades and sales in general. I was writing for a conglomerate of media outlets, and I had met this gal who later became my wife, and she was running a roofing company at the time. And because in sales I was so good at talking to strangers and I was um, used to getting information to people so that way they're in a concise manner, so that way they're fully informed and know what's going on. Um, this gal, her name was Heather, uh, saw that transitioning over to sales pretty well. So she said, you can make a lot of money being in construction and construction sales, and so you should give this roofing company a try. So she had me ride along with the owner about maybe three times. It was over the winter months, so there wasn't a lot of work. But he did a couple of inspections. He was teaching me about roofs. Let's cut that out. I had a yawn.
Yep.
Uh, he was teaching me about roofs. And from there, we had a hailstorm. This was in Colorado, a big hail market. And there was a big hailstorm that year. And I went out with the owner the very next day to learn sales. And the very next day after that, they had eight roofs for me to jump on and threw me out on my own. And sink or swim, basically.
Oh gosh.
Threw me into this pool and whatnot. So I don't mind saying that first couple of years, I took some bruises. And when I was really starting to pay attention to the jobs I was losing compared to what I was signing, the amount of commissions I was losing because I didn't know what I was doing on the sales side, that's when I sought out to grab every resource that I could, whether it was a conference, a free webinar, some of the older guys who were doing it, kind of mentoring or shadowing them, riding along with them for a day, even if they were with a different company, if they were nice enough. And I just started piecing together the best of what I knew I could execute from what they were doing that was working. And I just picking up tips and tricks. And eventually, um, after deciding door knocking was not the best use of my time, is what I was starting to bring. I didn't care for the 2% return on it, and that was no better than a mailer, And I said, well, I'd rather have my time and pay for a mailer than go out there and save that money. And so I started thinking there's got to be a way to have my phone blow up when there's a hailstorm instead of me out there chasing down doors. And so that's when I started learning about business development and how to set a net and set a network of referral partners. So that way, when these things did come, they came to me instead of me having to go to them. So now the only door knocking I actually do is when my phone doesn't blow up. But about 5 years ago, I kind of switched to where I'm getting up there in age, and my hips and my ankles aren't working as well as I'd like them to, and my threshold for the pitch is getting lower and lower. So I decided that the way I want to spend the rest of my time in roofing is teaching other people all the things that I had learned, keep teaching them how to keep track of their progress, how to keep track of where they're weak, coach them, build training programs for different companies. And basically, if I had to boil it down, I want to make myself to be the person I should have had when I first started in roofing. And I would have not had so many lumps if I had somebody like me, working with me. So I decided I wanted to be that person in the industry, and that's what I've been doing for the last 5, 6 years.
I love that, Ben. I mean, one thing that comes to mind, and it just sounds so pervasive, is whenever we start a career, people forget that there's an ignorance tax present.
Mhm.
We just don't know what we don't know. And we gotta go through like what you talked about when you're learning sales, like those bumps and bruises and figuring out like what works and what doesn't. And then people often quit during that time. But like I see three different pillars that came for you. It sounds like you've learned the sales, like the one-on-one interactions. You recognize like something needs to scale from this, and that's that business development piece. Like now that like instead of one-to-one, you're doing this one-to-many with these referral
Right,
partners
right,
in place. It's not that you've like forgotten or neglected the door knockings of the world, but you found something that scales better for you. And then the
right.
last part is now that you've built this one to many, can you do a many to many relationship? And that's teaching other people how to be accountable. Like, I love this progress for you, of this notion of like learning, then building, and then scaling along with other team members. Out of all of
Yeah.
this, Ben, what are some of the proudest moments so far and like going through this process for the past 5 years?
Well, just seeing people who I've had people on my sales teams who, they were living in an apartment, and after a couple of years they were able to buy a house, and or they had a house and they were able to buy a boat, and that's one of the things I teach right away when I join a team is you're not going to realize the dreams that you want to achieve, whether it's I want more money to invest, or I want to be able to send my kids to college or have a family, travel more. You're not going to be able to do that as a salesperson if you're just waiting for warm leads to come in and be handed to you. That might be good for, depending on the success of the company and their marketing strategy, that might be good for paying the rent and your utilities, and, at least paying a little bit for your lifestyle. But as far as those big dreams that you have, the where you want to be in 10 years, you got to operate like you're your own business, and the company you're repping is your top client. So you got to get out there and you got to hustle like it is your business. It's all your money, and your money is your time as a salesperson. We're all looking for a way to bring in more business with our time, less than our money. Because
Hmm. Hmm.
obviously that's not our investment. So that's also where I step in is teaching people to do that. And once they get their head around that and they're able to get out of whatever comfort zone was keeping them from exploring new ways, and that's not just knocking doors. I had a guy who was petrified to not knock doors. I mean, he had been such a killer on the doors. He, he was making 6 grand a month, but and in my opinion, going out and knocking doors for 4 days a week for 3 hours, and you should be making more than 6,000 in that amount of
Yeah.
time. You'd be making more than $6,000 in commission. So once I kind of sat him down and showed him the number, I said 6,000 is great, but what if you did this? And started to show him that door knocking is just one vertical. And I'm not dissing it. I know it's not going to go away. It's not going to go away anytime soon until all municipalities decide it's an ordinance against it. But it's just one vertical. And I am all about teaching not just the verticals that I know that have worked, but also looking for new and strategic verticals that you can add and seeing where, because generations of homeowners and generations of property owners, they start getting younger and they start responding in different ways. So sometimes some of the verticals that you had to get in front of people, not necessarily going to work in the next 10 years, or even the next year. You got to think of something else. You always have to innovate, getting in front of people and creating that perception of value. So and that's kind of what I take their hand and say, okay, I know you love the doors, but you can probably be, you're making a good living doing the doors, but imagine if you did this 2 days a week, and then this comes into you, and joins it, and then all of a sudden you can buy that boat you keep talking about wanting. So
Yeah, and I love that framework that you talked about, which I think a lot of people don't realize is like you started off with like, what are your goals? Like, what
mhm.
do you want to accomplish? This isn't just a job for the sake of like just feeding yourself. It's like you need something to look forward to. It's almost like you're a personal development coach. Like you are this person that's saying like, look, like not to put it like in this blunt way, but like you're limiting yourself by thinking this is the only path to work because you found that this works this way, but you're not thinking about like what other ways can grow. It's just one tool in your toolkits, so to
Yep,
speak.
yep, that's exactly right. And so, that's always been my philosophy. And I've been with a lot of companies that just didn't see it that way. They looked at me like I had lobsters coming out my ears, but I kept saying, no, we all need to be doing an equal amount of this and this and this and this and door knocking. And they're like, that's never going to take off. And then eventually, about 5 or 6 years ago, I found a company that was already doing it and had proven, and through COVID in their region, they were the top producing uh, company, while all the others were just closing up shop or at least putting it on ice until COVID was over. And even
Mm,
the supply houses were asking us, what are you guys doing so different? Because you guys are just killing it. And we're like, we're not going to tell you because we've been telling people for years, but nobody would listen. So we're not going to repeat ourselves.
yeah.
And then ever since then, just other companies have heard of me and they just, have just wanted me to show them how to do it. And then, I found this company out here in St. Louis, and I recently moved here to help them get established with the same thing. So,
I love that. Let's double click on your wins on this. So like what's working really well for your business in your book of business lately?
our systems, that's one of the things, especially when some roofing companies, I find a lot of roofing companies will try and hire two different types of people. One who's just not afraid to knock on doors and knock on as many doors as they can. And two, they're looking for a killer salesman who knows everything about roofing. And they're looking for someone with that huge dynamic and whatnot. But the problem with that is that those people are going to command a pretty high salary, if they're that proven, especially to start. So what I always look for when I'm building a team is I'm looking for someone with any kind of sales experience, even if it's some 21-year-old kid who's only got working in a Verizon store
Yeah, yeah,
as experience. It's still showing value. You still have experience expressing value. So,
yeah,
I can work with that. I can teach them about roofing and build off of what they already know about sales. The other thing is if I have a project manager who wants to start providing for his family better and seeing the sales guys make more and more money, and he's only getting a project manager's salary and he wants to make the switch to sales, I can build off of that as well because he's got all the knowledge. He just needs to be taught sales. So, because when I started with no knowledge of either. And, it took me a while, but, now I know what I wish I knew then. So that's how I build my training systems. So that way, I have 1 week that focuses on roofing for salespeople, and then another one that it just focuses on sales and business development. And it's 2 weeks of very comprehensive in the door training to get onboarded, and then after that, it's about shadowing. And I set them up with one of the more experienced guys to do some shadowing for a couple of weeks, and that they go for quite a bit. If they're new and a little green in either aspect, they're going to get taken care of, for that first month before they're out on their own, you know. So, and that's the other thing is that it's pushing for it's pushing for, like you said, kind of like what you touched on, is that this is you don't get into roofing for a job, in my opinion, especially not on the sales side. You're doing it for a career. It's the longer you can build those connections and previous contacts and stuff like that, the more that pipeline does start to build up and hold on and remember you as time goes on, to where just on previous customers alone, an area gets hit with hail and your phone's blowing up because they all have your name saved. And that's why it's a career. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You know. So
yeah.
so as far as wins go, I mean that's taking somebody who's kind of green on either, and see them start to make a good living, especially if they're young, just had a baby with their young wife, and they're looking to find a career that they can jump into without having a college degree necessarily. And it's very exciting for me to watch them be able to develop and do that, to where they reach that resource maturity and they're off flying on their own.
No, that's gotta be so fulfilling for you. I've been told a man's life can be summarized into three different pillars:
Mhm.
learn, earn, then return. It's just like for me, I was like, wait, what do you mean by this? Like, yeah, you spend your formative years like building a foundation. Like
Right.
you gotta get your elbows and knees dirty because you know what the consequences are. It's a motivator. And then once you've learned, like you start reaping some of the rewards from it,
Yeah.
from a financial perspective, then you start being able to afford a family and whatever like that looks like for folks, like a boat. I mean,
Right.
like I'm not there. I'm not there for. I'm not a big boat guy, but
Mhm.
I see the draw for folks with it. And then the last part was like you start thinking about like, okay, like what else is there to life? And then you get the sense of fulfillment from teaching,
Yeah.
mentoring, like developing the next generation, like taking all that you've learned and
Mhm.
recognizing that it's valuable and you can now share it to others. Like that's a powerful thing to hear from you, Ben. At least that's what I'm hearing from your
Yeah.
life and your journey so far.
Well, and the side note on that is that if I can mentor and coach somebody on one of my sales teams and they're getting so good at evolving what verticals they're trying, and they find something new and they come to me and teach me what was now working for them that I never even thought of, that's when I really get excited because I'm just like, oh, that person's totally out there, breaking down another brick wall for us, taking
Yeah,
the first one through the brick wall gets the most lumps, and he's turning around and saying, hey, I got through, I know what let's try this for a while. And I'm just like, I love that.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's a two-way street too. Like
Yeah.
based on like what you're describing, like it doesn't end with you, or the leaders, like the folks that think they know it all. It's when they lose. There's always new things like that. I'm still anchoring to that first statement you described in the beginning, Ben. Is like there's so much more out there. There's a new generation
Mhm.
that are owning homes, and they like to be reached differently from like the traditional ways. And we always got to be ready to meet the customers wherever they're going to be at.
Right, right, and speak their language. I
Mm.
mean, it's
Yep.
they're everybody, not everybody, but you hear that book, The Five Love Languages,
Yeah.
uh, as it
Yeah.
refers to relationships. It's the same in sales too. You gotta figure out a prospective clients or a referral partner's love language, so that way you know how to talk. You know, so and
Yeah.
communicate and share and connect and keep that connection.
So, Ben, tell me about a recent win or success story, something that's top of mind for you that you're quite proud of with one of your team members or for yourself.
Well, I think that comes back to I had one actually one of my top selling guys that I introduced. He was in sales. What was he doing? It was something remotely. Can't remember. Electrical something, corporate industrial electrical supplies, maybe. I can't remember.
Sure.
And so he was doing something with remote sales and some travel. And I met him at a bar and I brought him over because he was looking to not travel so much. So I brought him over part time, taught him roofing and such like that. And then after that, he kind of got his hooks in because he's in sales, so he got his hooks in. He was able to transfer his skills, and he just kind of took off. And eventually he moved on to another company that was offering him way more money, and that was I didn't care to lose him, but I was happy to see him, command a much bigger salary with the reputation he had gained. And then just a few weeks ago, we were talking, and he had just gotten a general manager's position out in California for an industrial, large scale commercial roofing company out there. And so, his career going from, selling electrical in a remote position with some travel, to, deciding this is what I want to do now. And that's just a wildfire of a career. And that was all within 5 years. So,
Wow.
for him to go to, I don't know, he was pulling under me on his best year. He was pulling maybe 150,000, and those are on, not very big storm years. And then, to now he's making, I think he said his salary was like a little over 300,000. So I mean, it's amazing. I'm just real happy for him and his family. So, and I'm not. I mean, I'm happy for him. I don't like using the word proud. I don't feel like I made that. I just introduced him to.
You're part of the journey.
I was part of the journey. I was his foot
Yeah.
in the door for that, and that's what I like seeing. I have another guy who is now with Surf Pro as a rebuild manager,
Mhm.
and he was just dying to get into any kind of construction trade, and he got hired by the same company, and they threw him under me to learn, and myself and the office manager took him under our wing because he was a great guy, and now he's got a really good position with Surf Pro that he's moved on, and that was within the last 6 years. So yeah, I just love seeing people's success stories, whether they stay in roofing or not, but they stay in, it's real easy to see, the stuff that I coach them on transition to whatever, new successes that they've had. And enough for them to call me back and say, "Hey, this has just happened to me," and yeah,
Ah.
you know. So I like that. It's kind of like that thing where high school teacher and kid writes a novel that's a big hit, and they call and say, "Hey, did you hear about the novel?" and that kind of thing. It's kind of like that, I guess.
I love that, and I'm sure again that's that piece of value that comes out from that like concept of returning back, and those mentorship pieces. So let's flip the script a little here, Ben. We talked about your wins and like just what you're seeing out there on the field. Like, what are some of the darker parts about running your business? What's hard? What's brutal in your day to day?
Well, let's talk about the market in Colorado. That's one of the reasons I started looking out of state. Colorado seeing a lot of roofing companies in Colorado, which that market's always been saturated. It's one of the three most saturated markets in the country. It's always been them, Ohio, and Texas, and Florida if you count. I mean for hail, Florida if you
Mhm.
count hurricanes, obviously. It's saturated with companies, and that's okay. I don't mind a lot of competition. You know, that's what I do is to help companies focus in on what makes them different and be able to sell that. But what I look at the roofing industry as a community that I like to be a part of. And when the community is not behaving in a way that I'm proud of it, then you know the roofing industry, I see it as a community and it's something that I'm very proud to be in. And the way the Colorado market was headed, and some of the behaviors, marketing behaviors of a lot of those companies out there was making it so where it wasn't something I was proud to be a part of. Or, you know, it's one of those things where you're guilty by association, you know, when there's a lot of door knocking and lying to homeowners about what damage they have and showing them photos that aren't even of their roof to get them to file a claim. And then once they file the claim, they just argue until they get the roof approved. And yeah, they're getting the roof, they're getting the work, but I mean, how are you sleeping at night? You know, that's another thing. So that was getting very dark. Even in the neighborhood that I own a house there in Colorado, the houses in my neighborhood were just getting, you know, they were getting replaced. And I kept telling my neighbors, there is no hail in this
Mm.
neighborhood. I've been on all your roofs, you know. Well, they found it. They showed pictures. I'm like, this isn't even the same color,
Wow.
you know, and and it's working for them and it's terrible. It's just a terrible way to do business. It's completely unethical. And that's kind of the biggest the biggest problem I have with that market, you know. And the other darkness is that a lot of that market is getting shrouded in these franchises. These national companies are coming in and selling franchises to people, and you don't have the $5-6 million roofing companies that you know are super local. Even though the people buying the franchises they're local, but they're not necessarily roofers. You know, they're teachers who just want to make more money or you know something. And you know it's a free market. I'm not saying that they don't have the right to do that, but you know you have some hard earning smaller companies out there that are just not getting a chance. And so when you have a storm and now instead of trying to be the 11th or 12th person knocking on the door, now you're flooded and now you're the 20 to 25th person knocking on the door. And by then it's a complete waste of time. So that market is just so saturated, and everybody, even if you watch the job boards, because I'm always looking for teams to build and stuff like that. You look at the job boards and see what people are hiring. All they want is knock, 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 knock. That's all they want. And when you get that many companies and that's their only vertical, then there's it's hard to stand out and be a part of a community that is always in everybody's face in an aggressive manner
Mm.
like that. And I just don't teach that. I don't teach that. You know, even my door knocking is not the styles that I teach for that is just not aggressive. So when you say when you ask the dark things that I'm seeing is at least in the Colorado market, it's going backwards.
Mm.
And and
Hmm.
that's probably the most frustrating thing because I really started to see people start to come around. And there are some companies out there that are doing the right thing. There's some that refuse to knock on doors and
Sure.
only do business development. And they're doing great. You know, they're like 10, $15 million companies because they know how to do it. But you get these franchises coming in and all these national companies are saying is go knock doors, and that's it. They don't talk about being high profile in the community. They don't talk about referral partners. They don't talk about, you know, joining. They'll join Chamber of Commerce's, but they don't do anything with it. They're not active in them. They don't become they don't become ambassadors with the Chamber of Commerce's. You know, they don't volunteer for their events. And so I've joined Chamber of Commerce's out there where they didn't even know if they had another roofer. And I had to go online and found out that they had seven. But I was the only one at the events doing anything and being active about it. And so I was getting all the referrals, and that's what I'm saying is that, they just don't think they think that's just not worth their time. Meanwhile, my phone's blowing up, and I don't have to be out there in the sun pounding pavement all the time.
Yeah.
20th guy on the door. So
Yeah. And it
it's
goes back to that mentality that you established, Ben, like just being I mean, call me out with this. It sounds like you're humble enough to recognize that this isn't the only path. Even though this path is successful, there's
Mhm.
got to be more out there, and there's more longer term pieces like this referral partner network that you described about being part of the community where
Mhm.
like the roofs are actually at. The people that live under the roofs that you're servicing are actively involved around the community. Be a part, meet them where they're at.
Right. Do you have a girlfriend or a wife?
I do. I've got a wife and I got a 4-month-old that came in, our firstborn.
Oh, good for you. I have three myself. When you met your
Nice.
wife, did you did you walk up to her and say, "Hey, I'm Dan, and I'm the best marketing person you'll ever meet. We should make out."
No.
No,
Oh
no.
man.
It's the same thing. Well, that's what door knocking is. That's you walking up to a door saying, "I'm the best roofer in the area. We should make out." Instead of, "Hi, how you doing? What do you do? What do you do for fun?" "Oh, that's great. What are you doing this weekend?" "Oh, that's great. Oh, you need something with your roof? I happen to be a roofer." That's the difference between those verticals. That's the difference between business development and, door knocking. Door knocking is just this crazy ass, I'm sorry. Door knocking is just this crazy numbers game, right? And business
Yeah,
development is more just going out and making friends, in my mind. And that's what I teach people to make it less scary.
that's a great phrase over there. From door knockings is a numbers game versus
Mhm.
business development is a relationship building game. I
Yeah,
love that. And that's going to reap dividends across the board.
yeah,
Um, Ben, so let's dive into your like day-to-day business. If you could wave a magic wand and fix two bottlenecks in your operations, what would it be?
and this company's got it down pretty good, but um, they're always evolving. That's the thing. They're always looking at how they could get it better. Um,
You good?
okay, okay. So if I could wave a magic wand and help things as far as growth goes, it's the recruiting process. That's I think everywhere I've gone, that's always been a chore. You know, um, there's a lot of different recruiting companies out there. We do a lot of things in house. Um, sometimes these recruiting companies just don't quite get what you're looking for, and maybe that's, you know, the fault of the client, being myself, expressing what I'm looking for. Um, but yeah, it's these last few years have been a little daunting finding someone that is a fit culturally. And I'm not even talking about skill set. I'm saying their resumes are great, but you talk to them and it's like talking to a piece of wood. It's just like,
Mm.
give me something, give me a reason to like you. I see that you could probably do this job, but why would I like you to do this job? I want to work with someone that I can hang out with and mentor, and I
Yeah.
don't want to be the only funny one, So come with a personality. It's sales, and we're talking about building relationships. Come with a personality. Otherwise, I'll find you a computer job, a computer role, and we'll hire you for that. But so that's kind of it's that magic intangible that all the AI systems and all the whatnots, they do pretty well, but I'm still not finding that thing that makes recruiting easy. So that's one area that, if I had a magic wand, boom, we could just make that easier. After that, I would say the next part is, well, it's a little specific to ours. There's a lot of roofing, like in the instance of St. Louis, because St. Louis sits on the border of two states. We have, our marketing efforts in Missouri, and we have our marketing efforts in Illinois. And so keeping a balance to where the one area, the marketing and the organic leads that are coming in for the one area is matching the other, and that keeping that that balance between the two has been a little bit of a chore. We're trying to ramp up people finding us on the Illinois sites. People go. We're trying to ramp up people being able to find us on Google a little bit better when they're doing so in Illinois. They're finding us in Missouri very well, but we got to get Illinois back up there as well. So we're doing some marketing things for that. We're doing some boots on the ground type of things. I run a bunch of incentive programs and contests to help boost these types of stuff. But again, that's a marathon, not a sprint as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. And you'll find that like the more you try to game it and shortcut it, the more it's gonna bite you in the
yeah,
butt.
or the more time it takes,
Yeah.
believe it or not, you try and take a shortcut, but it takes so much time to set up a shortcut. It's just ridiculous. So,
Yeah.
and the other thing is, a lot of people think they can do it themselves, and that's you can, but just takes you longer. So, you gotta have a team, whether you outsource it or, with my team, I'll explain to them, I need you to go. You have an appointment out here in Illinois. Okay, great. Even if you don't have any work, they don't have any work for you to do, just get a 5-star review. Have them do a 5-star review just about how your integrity is. And, you didn't try and BS them that they had hail damage or that they didn't need unnecessary repairs and that you were on time and that you were nice. Still get a 5-star review just on that. And
Yeah.
so it's kind of like it's it's just being cognizant of those ways that when you are out there, you know, let's go ahead and find that. And then the other thing is making a point to get some referral partners, focus on, those areas where organically we're just not being found as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. For the sake of the time, then I want to make sure like we start dreaming on
Yeah.
this and stay away from like the darker side of things. Let's look at this. Like, where do you want your business to be in the next 12 to 18 months?
12 to 18 months, I want another 3 guys on my team. Actually, 18 months, I'd like to have another 5 in about 18 months. Um, I'd like to have them all with a very well-established book of referral contacts and business development. Um, Probably after 24 months, an assistant for myself. And overall, the next 5 years, where I am tasked to make sure our profit margin stays well above what industry standard says is sustainable, and um, that leads coming in are 50/50 between self-generated and handed by the company, and that revenue grows 35% every year for the next 5 years. So
That's quite ambitious. I love that. But at
yeah,
least like there's an idea of like what you want, and that's half of the problem. Is
yeah,
most folks chase what they don't know what they want.
yeah.
So by being so detailed with this, another 5 guys in a team, like knowing that you need support staff
Mhm.
after you hit certain times because it's not you need to grow the infrastructure as well. And then also the maintenance piece, like the profit margins and the revenue growth. I appreciate you being able to be able to like state that
Yeah.
effectively. Um, Last few questions on my end is what do you need to have in place to make that vision a reality? Is it what are some mechanics that you're looking at to reach those goals?
Well, again, it comes back to recruiting. I need the people for one. I can only replicate myself so much until I have people I can coach and mentor and are off on their own. Um, so much so that when I get up to 10, I'd like to have, some of the more experienced people start to take in a team underneath them. Um, but I mean, that's for those 5 years. I mean, really, it's about that. It's about building a branding presence. It's about being more high profile in the community. I mean, people seeing us in parades, people seeing us with a booth at the local high school football game, people seeing us, with going to children's hospital and volunteering to read to the kids or play with the kids. These are all things that are part of my plan for over the next 5 years that we start implementing. But I can't do it all myself and with just a couple other people. I need the bodies, and I need the bodies who are willing and understand how important these things are, you know. I might get someone who's a killer salesman, and he's like, I don't want to go read to kids, or I don't want to go hand out, uh, branded Fublies at the high school game. Well, why not? It's just meeting again, it's just meeting people. It's just doing something nice. So I just I need the people. I need the people to do it. I need the team, and the team needs to
Yeah.
grow. And so for me, it comes down to recruiting. That's the biggest thing. I need a larger pool of candidates that would be the fit. Outside of that, obviously, marketing dollars is always a concern. Um, but right now the company's doing pretty well with its marketing dollars, getting a lot of organic leads coming in right now, a lot of self-generated leads coming in right now. Realtors are real big channel for us, and it's even though the winter months are coming, in this market with the storms and the tornadoes that they've had in the last couple of years, the work is just not really slowing down. But the presence is not going to grow unless I have people who can, one, I got to find the people. I got to have the people. Two, they got to be on board. And three, they got to know how to execute and be willing to execute, and be enthusiastic about it. So,
I love that. Since we're approaching time,
yeah.
Ben, there's a lot of good information here. From what I'm hearing, it's just the concept of like business development and your journey to grow and multiply and be a force multiplier. Like this concept of just being a part of the community. Especially when times where folks may not be as integritous. Like I don't want to like I think I just made up a word. Just
Yeah.
being just being good. And being honest up front with folks, like and just being able to be a part of the community and show that there's a proper way of doing this.
Yeah.
Um, but how can people find out more about you and Protect Roofing?
Easiest way is our website, which is Protect Roofing. Now we're spelt a little different, where we have two R's in Protect. So it's Prrotect roofing.com. So Protect roofing.com. And you can learn more about us there. You can learn more about our owner Tim and his story, and they can always contact me. My first name has two N's in it just to make it more.
Hey, you're consistent.
Yeah. So it's BENN at protectroofing.com is my email address.
I love it. Well, this was a great episode from Ladders to Leadership podcast. Ben, thank you so much for your time and just sharing your wealth of information from a sales and personal development perspective in the roofing space.
Sure enough. Oh, and I do have a book on Amazon if anybody wants to look for one. It's all they have to do is type my name into Amazon, and it's called the Ultimate Sales and Business Development Field Guide. And a lot of what I'm talking about goes into detail in that book.
Love it. And that's another part of your legacy is like learning how to scale and share what you've learned. So folks may be able to have lesser bruises in the process.
Right. That's the point. That's what I want to be. So,
All right. Thanks for your time, Ben.
all right. Thank you.